Previously on Family Guy.
Oh, they're doing the previously thing. Do it again. Do a very ominous sounding, very, omnipotent God, angry, telling us some information what happened in the last episode for those catching up.
Alright, hey, this is Bubba Outdoors DCK. We're inside the house now. We got our Steelhead all cleaned up from outside. We are going to dive into the filleting process, teach you how I do it, preferably. Got a few knives laid out here. You can pick and choose your whatever you want. We got a little Rapala 6-inch. And then we got the old Dexter 9-inch. That's always tried and true. You can always pick whatever you want. Old Bubba blade 9-inch. These are really good blades. I like them. But today I think I'm gonna go with the Bubba blade 12-inch. And I go with the 12-inch because it's got a wider blade and it keeps it flat when it goes through the fillet. It's not as cut up and messy. It's a little bit cleaner, neater, but depending on how good you are at cutting, I probably won't do so good today. It's been a while. So anyway, you pick up the pectoral fin like this. I put my palm down on the head. Anyway, you lift up this pectoral fin, put your palm down on the head to secure it so it doesn't move. Right behind here, there's a little bone behind the gill plate. I like to go on the back side of it so I don't dull my blade. And I run it up the neck just like that. Right through that pectoral fin. And what I like to do is rotate. Probably should use a skinnier blade to do that part. Get that fillet piece up and you just follow the bones down the fillet. I try not to leave any meat behind, so I'm kind of anal about getting the knife close to the fillet, which I may have just... It's kind of a finicky process, not hitting all these spine bones right here. Your blade gets caught up on them. It's really harsh on your edge. But we try and make it to where there's little to no meat left behind, preferably something like this. This is actually a fairly decent job, honestly. There's a little bit of stuff like this. You can take your smaller knife, and if you like doing sushi, you can cut these off, freeze them up. Once you freeze them, it kills the bacteria. It's safe to eat. Then you can make sushi out of them. That way you can utilize all the meat from these fish if you want, or you can freeze them. Feed them to your animals. The omega fatty acids in them is amazing for their coat. All around just good for their health. Anyway, let's flip this sucker over. Don't mind the piece that just fell on the floor. We'll get to it. Or one of the cats will. Anyway. I'm going to go ahead and switch up here and use a smaller blade to get around this first bit. It's a little easier to maneuver and get the fillet started than using that big fat blade. Anyway, once I get started here, I'll switch back because you got more leverage, more meat power with a thicker blade. I think his preference once again. Just don't cut yourself in the process. Okay, so there's our other fillet. Now you can see there's a few Like I said, it's been a while, so I'm a little rusty, but there's kind of a bad cut spot here where I lifted up the blade too much. But again, that's all preference. You don't have to have it nice and neat like this. And again, a little extra depending if you like sushi or not, which we do around here. It's okay because it all gets utilized. Whatever doesn't get utilized, we go ahead and throw it in the garden, bury it, let it decompose. Anything from the ocean, fish related, is really good for your plants, which we'll show you in later videos when we can our tomatoes and whatnot. It's all good nutrients. You don't have to be super picky with it and get everything off, but that's what you want your leftover scraps to look like, where you can darn near see them. I don't know if you can see the translucentness in that. Hold it up to the light. Yeah. Okay. I'll shine it up to the light for you. You can kind of see how clear, transparent it is. Translucent, whatever. You can see through it. Get most of the meat off. Don't let none of it go to waste, because it is prized fish. In my book, it's one of the best fish you'll ever eat in your life. So, as we move on to the rib meat, we're going to switch up blades. This one's a little bit more finicky, more tedious process. I like a thinner blade, and usually I have a bucket with me to wash. I like to keep all of the saliva off of the fillet, again, so you don't get that fishy flavor in the end. It's very, 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 very important that you keep that slime and the fishy flavor off of your blade. So we'll go ahead and start with this one. Part of the rib meat was taken off when filleting. That's part of the reason why I like the wider blade. But anyway, what we're going to do, my back's hurt. I got to kneel down. Right behind these rib bones right here. What? No, you can't touch that. That'll get you sick, honey. Anyway, right behind these rib bones, you get your blade just right behind them. You want to get real close to the ribs to ensure that you're not leaving any meat behind. Spin this around so you can see the blade coming through. You can kind of see how the blade's coming close to the ribs. And that's what you want. I know, honey. Sissy, I heard you, honey. I'll get your plate on in a second, okay? Alright, thank you. And I'll tell you what, folks. A lot of people like to trim this off, and I will tell you right now, do not. That is like a fat on a ribeye. It is the greatest tasting piece of the fish you will ever have. You can cut it off if you want, but I would highly recommend trying it first before cutting it off. It is the best tasting fish you will ever have in your life, hands down. So I'm going to leave that on there because it is gold to me. All right. So again, we're going to try and get right behind these rib bones. Even after all the years that I've fished, these things are still a big pain in the butt. You really don't even have to cut these off. You can cook. You can leave them on and cook them on, and they peel off easier that way. I peel them off so that I can get seasoning, better penetration on the seasoning later on when we cook it. And we'll show you a seasoning video later on that will knock your guys' socks off. The best seasoning, I think, for these fish on the barbecue. It is absolutely incredible, bar none. I won't use any other seasoning. There's something about it that just makes this fish that much better. It's something I grew up with too, so it's nostalgic for me. You know, other people may have their own method, what have you, that's fine. But I will show you. Sorry, we're back. We got our tweezers now. What you're gonna do, you can't really see them, but maybe if he zooms in close enough here, you can actually run your finger right along the back here. What you do is, once you feel it with your index finger, you grab them with the tweezers. You pinch really hard and you gently pull back. And what it does, it pulls these pin bones out. And it improves the eating experience of these fish, because it is no fun when you eat this and you have to go digging in your mouth to pull a bone out, and it's just not very appetizing. So it's worth it to spend the extra minutes to go through and pull these out. I'll see if I can poke one of these out so you can see these little pin bones I'm referring to. I don't know if you can get in close enough and see that little bone. You see that? You can kind of see there's a couple right in there. And they stop right around where the belly ends. Sometimes they can be really hard to pull out, so don't be afraid to squeeze down on them tweezers.
Wow. You don't want to watch this?
So we're going through and getting all these. And then we'll move on to the other fillet. If you see any scales, pull those off. Again, obviously you don't want the fishy flavor on your meat. There you go. That's a good shot of a bone. Alright, so here we are. We got them all filleted up, all cleaned up. So I like to bring them back to the sink one more time, because even after scaling and washing them off, you still have slime from the table when you're filleting and whatnot. I'll take them over to the sink carefully, try not to get the meat wet, and I'll get the last of the saliva off. Bring them over to paper towels, and then we'll pat dry them. If you're going to vacuum seal them, I highly recommend pat drying them, because your seal won't. If you have a vacuum sealer, you probably already know this, but if you don't, pat dry them, get all the water off, because when the vacuum seal sucks all the air out, it draws the water to your sealing part, and it doesn't like to seal. So here we are. You can see the difference. This one's pat dried. This one is not. Again, like I said about vacuum sealing, you want to get as much of the moisture off it as possible, and even better if you put it in the freezer for not overnight or 24 hours, just 30-40 minutes to firm up the meat. If you are going to vacuum seal it, it helps firm the meat up so that it sucks all the air super tight to the fillet, and it gets all the air out. But I don't typically like using vacuum seal bags, because no matter what you do, something in the freezer in the process, moving stuff around, the bag gets poked, the seal breaks, then you get frostbite on your fish, and it ruins your whole fish, and everything you worked so hard to do gets thrown out the window. So this is a package I'm defrosting for fishing tomorrow. These are duck pepperoni sticks. It is in freezer paper, and you can leave this stuff in your freezer for years at a time. Your food is still good, is going to stay good. We've got deer and elk from 5-6 years ago that we wrap in this stuff. The seal doesn't break. You can't poke it. It doesn't get frostbitten. No matter how long it sits in your freezer, this stuff is gold. And if you want to reuse the paper, you pull it out before you defrost it, unwrap your meat that's wrapped in cellophane, pull it aside, and you can reuse the paper. It doesn't hurt anything. And it's great stuff to use. You can find it at Amazon. It's butcher paper or freezer paper. I highly recommend using this stuff. It is absolutely incredible. I will never use anything other than, we even use it for our chicken breast we get from the store. We buy 50 pounds at a time, butcher it, clean it, pack it, and put it in the freezer with our pork, beef, anything else. That stuff is amazing. We'll set a link in the description where to find it on Amazon as well. So, all right, now that we got these suckers dried off, let's go ahead and get the napkins off. Ah, that is beautiful. All right, get this off the napkins. What we'll do is we'll get our cellophane. We'll wrap it in cellophane, put it in the fridge for tonight, and we'll show you guys a seasoning video like I mentioned earlier on how to, the seasoning blend that we use for these fish. Man, I wish I could give you a taste of this stuff through the cameraman. Cameraman Steve-O back there, he's going to be one of our judges tomorrow when we get to cooking this up. Okay, let's grab the cellophane real quick. Okay, so once again, these are only sitting in the fridge overnight. But if you do decide to freezer paper them, I would section them depending on the size of your family and how many pieces you're going to have that night. But at least break it down into smaller pieces so it's more manageable for wrapping. First, you always wrap it with cellophane. And what you do when you wrap it with cellophane is you want to try and get as much of the air out of it as possible. All right. Again, like I said, these are going in the fridge for tonight, so it doesn't really matter. It's going to kind of example. And if I do put it in freezer paper, I would probably pull out another saran wrap seal, flip it over, and put the folds on the other side to thicken the barrier, plastic barrier around the meat. I'm going to go ahead and do this one. And after we do this, we are done fishing, processing, cleaning, packing for the day, and we are on to cleaning up the table and putting the rest of the stuff away and keeping the kids out of the fish. Thank you. You gotta wash your hands afterwards, dude. A little humor there, sorry. I am showing our viewers how we process our fish and how we take care of it. And yeah, if you want to, get that all nice and laid out. And there you have it. Two forearm size fillets, clean, ready for dinner tomorrow. Goodness gracious, can't talk. There you go.
1 second.